Welcome to Spotlight ETSU. I'm your host, Carrie Oliveira. Today we're talking with ETSU's Director of Tennis, Yaser Zaatini. Yeah, Zaatini. Hi.
How are you?
Welcome.
Thanks for killing my name.
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. It's super interesting.
The name?
Yeah, we're going to talk about your name here in a second.
Okay.
But first we're going to talk about how you got to ETSU. So how did you become our coach? Our tennis coach, our men's tennis coach.
I drove here from Miami.
That is a really obnoxious answer.
It's a long story.
Okay.
How much time do we have?
We have 30 minutes.
Okay, so we got plenty.
We do.
It was just basically out of the blue. We flew into Miami looking for a scholarship late December. Many universities had passed me, and all of a sudden we get a call from ETSU. My old coach played tennis here from Argentina.
Okay.
Pierre Arnold, and Coach Mullins contacted him needing a player for January, and I was available. So my friend and I drove over from Miami about 13 hours.
I was going to say, that's not a short drive.
26 wasn't open then, so we had to go through 19, 23, and then it was brutal. And we arrived here and it was freezing and snowing.
And then you had to play tennis.
In the dome, which it's a...
But you apparently put on an excellent performance, because then we paid for you to come to school here.
That's true.
So,
That's true. Well, not amazing, but I think I was decent enough to earn a scholarship.
You were competent.
Exactly. Let's put it that way, which is not the case in many other areas.
Yeah, I suppose not.
Yeah.
So then we let you come to school here. You did your undergrad.
I did. I graduated from this beautiful building in communications, production, and broadcasting. So I went on to play tennis for a couple of years and went to Venezuela to produce soap operas. I know you weren't expecting that.
I was not expecting that. So you actually did use your broadcasting degree
until I went broke.
Because there's not a lot of money in producing
no,
Venezuelan telenovelas?
not as an assistant production.
Oh.
So eventually we put up our production company for commercials and stuff like that, and that didn't go too well because our TV channel was basically starting it in our city, and we couldn't get the business, and it was tough, you know, selling a product and getting into the business, starting from scratch. I didn't have the patience. I was starting a young family.
Yeah. And
my wife was making the money, so we could survive for a while, but after having our baby, we decided that I should get another job. And I started back with tennis.
So, and at that point you were playing tennis or coaching tennis? Or?
I opened up a tennis academy.
Ah, so what, who were you teaching to play tennis? Like everybody?
Everybody, but especially I was more dedicated to the junior developmental program and trying to get kids involved. And I would do summer camps.
Cool.
I would do summer camps every year starting from 1999, and I would bring the kids over to ETSU, show them around, show them where I developed my tennis, try to create that relationship to bring them in the future to play tennis for ETSU. I fell in love with the area. Coach Mullins, which was my coach and then athletic director back in the day, he allowed us to do the tennis camp here, and it was profitable, so my wife was happy.
Excellent, everybody's happy.
And eventually when his assistant coach in 2002 went to a different job, he called me and asked me, do you want to be the assistant? I may be thinking about retiring in 2 or 3 years. He brought me over, and after 6 months, he was named the athletic director.
Right.
So I was left in a position to try to prove myself as an interim.
Right. And apparently you have, indeed.
The son that never left.
So how long did you run your tennis academy in Venezuela?
About 4 years.
4 years, and then we snatched you back up here.
Well, the situation, political unrest in Venezuela.
Yes, and so that was a good opportunity.
I was trying to get out at the same time because it was tough.
Confluence of good fortune.
Yes,
all at
no
one
doubt,
time.
no doubt. Everything that has been related to ETSU and I has been lucky, and that's where the word luck comes from.
See, that I find so interesting. So let's talk about whether you proved yourself or not as an interim head coach. You're now, when did you become the official head coach?
In January of 2003.
2003. And since then, what have you done? You're wearing a giant piece of jewelry. I don't know if we can see it on the camera. That's a championship ring. You have 7 of those.
Well, 9.
9?
Yes.
Because you had 2.
But in the Southern Conference as well.
Right.
Yeah,
so
we have 7 in a row. And now give me a chance to brag a little bit.
Please.
Not on purpose, but we did win 7 in a row, and then 2004 and 2005, we won in the Southern Conference our last 2 years, which we're going back in.
Okay, so Southern Conference and then ASUN, and now we're going back to the Southern Conference?
Full circle.
Why are we doing that, out of curiosity?
It's when we dropped football back in 2005,
Right.
we were expelled from the Southern Conference, basically.
It was like, oh, you guys are naughty, you took away football, so we don't want you at all?
Basically.
Oh, that's
and the presidents of the other schools or athletic directors, I don't know how it was, they kicked us out, which was extremely sad for me because my playing career was all in the Southern Conference.
Right.
And I felt really sad. Then it took a while to get adapted to the ASUN and the travel, but I believe that ETSU, with all the support that we get with our athletic department, we made that conference pretty solid.
Right.
And eventually it grew, the competition was better.
So the travel radius in ASUN is bigger than it would have been, or is in Southern Conference?
Yes, because the ASUN includes teams from Florida, 3 or 4 teams from Florida.
So far.
And that is a far trip.
That's awful.
Well, and it's fun, you know, when you get the kid traveling down south and getting close to the big Mickey Mouse and
Right.
and the beach. After you're here in the mountains, they enjoy that place a lot.
And the ocean. Let's
Yes.
not forget that there's suddenly
Yeah.
water.
And, well, I mean, you go to the southwest coast of Florida, Fort Myers, and,
Yep.
and you get to travel to Orlando near Stetson and Jacksonville. It's you know, it's much more, I want to call it civilized because of the buildings.
Yes.
Everything grows up. Here, it's expanded
Exactly.
sideways.
So, I mean, and urban experience is sort of different. And you get a lot of, your players are mostly not American.
Mostly.
Where are they from mostly?
South America, Europe, and Bristol, Tennessee.
Bristol, the one guy from Bristol.
It's okay, but, you know, he counts. He counts.
I heard a rumor that the team speaks Spanish a lot of
True.
the time.
Yeah,
Why is that?
because that's a
That's
native
what the language
yeah.
they speak? What about the
So-
kid from Bristol?
He's learning. He's taking Spanish classes.
Is he
You know,
really? Just
But I think if you look at the cultural experience, and I would recruit exclusively Americans if we had talent that was capable and also willing to stay. I've tried to recruit 4 or 5 kids from the area.
Yeah.
Greenville, Kingsport, Johnson City, and all these kids
They
have
want to go.
they want to go away, and it's tough because you think of high school football, high school basketball, high school baseball.
Mm-hmm.
They all produce massive amount of players that you could pick from that crop.
Right.
Tennis is a very particular sport, and if you don't have tournament experience, international, and you don't develop with competition,
Yes.
we're not going to be competitive,
Right.
and we're lacking that in this area.
Yes.
But you know, we've been fortunate to develop our program. The coaches before that have done a great job have put our school in the map, and we've been able to develop our tennis.
Do most of the high schools around here even have tennis programs?
They do. They do.
Most of them
Yeah,
do.
Science Hill has produced several great little players, and Dubbins Bennett, and then you know Bristol,
And they all just ran away.
and some of them go away. Some, one or the other, stay. We have Jessica Brummett from Elizabethan, Connor Knox from Bristol, and you know, as long as we manage to keep one or two of those guys, and their lives are going to be influenced because they get to know the world. I mean, their friends are international.
Yes.
Eventually, they'll get to go to South America and Europe, and I think the U.S. is such a wonderful place, but we have a problem that we're so big
Yes.
that, I mean, it's so hard to get to know everything.
Everything, right,
And then
exactly.
since it's so hard, it's hard to get to know everything that's outside.
Exactly. 'Cause
And
it's
it's
enough
an
to learn
issue.
just where you come from.
And I could tell you from personal experience. I mean, you drive 8 hours from Johnson City to Memphis.
Memphis.
And then you go to Europe and you drive 8 hours and you go through 12 countries.
That just blows my mind.
And I'm exaggerating a
Well,
little
but no,
bit.
I mean, I totally understand the experience you're talking about. I grew up in Hawaii. I live on an island my entire life. You drive 2 hours, you wind up back where you started. The idea that I came to the mainland and I could drive for 2 hours and end up in another state or just way further away in the same state was just, it was mind blowing. And to have that experience at like an international level, I can imagine.
It seems silly, but it's true.
But it's completely true. It just, you have people who don't have a frame of reference for that, probably don't appreciate it, but it's an enormous thing to be able to drive and be completely someplace else.
And you know, we get a bad rap that we don't get to know outside. I'm talking about the American situation, but people that don't understand is because the greatness of the land.
Yes.
And you know, we're known not to be very cultural, but I mean, we're new.
Yes, I mean, relatively speaking, in the history of the world, absolutely.
Especially compared to Europe. But
So how much opportunity does your team have to be able to like go to like Europe or?
they go every summer.
Every
because
summer.
they live there.
They go home,
Yes,
basically.
and then you get some of the kids that tennis players, as a general rule, are better off families in the sense that they come from a stable background,
Right.
And they manage to travel. So a lot of the kids that have been competing in tennis have had a chance to go abroad,
Right.
from their countries to come to the U.S. to go to Europe.
Yeah.
So they've experienced that life, and you know, that's very fortunate.
Does it make him better as a team to have been sort of like exposed to multiple cultures and to be able to travel? I feel like in a person's experience, the more you see, the more empathy you build, the more kind of culturally and communicatively competent you become. It makes you more empathic. And I wonder if that contributes to their success as a team or their ability to bond or support each other or whatever.
Well, and I think that the general rule, the more open mind you are, the less critical you are, and the more understanding of different personalities
Right.
you can achieve. And I think that adds to the equation of being a better person.
Yes.
And you know, I think here, and I speak with a lot of confidence, Johnson City has the friendliest people in the world. I mean, I guess when I was here in school in 1990, I was probably one of 2 Latinos
Right.
that looked Arab. But,
Right.
you know, so it was kind of funny, you know, I would go out and you stand out.
Yes.
But more so now, I mean, we're so mixed. You look around and you have all these races and people being in, and the community of school has grown. And
Yes.
ETSU as a whole, I'm proud to say, especially the international department and Dr. Bach and the new administration, they're making a complete effort
A very deliberate effort. Yes.
to make ETSU more international and friendly.
And they're succeeding at that, I think,
No doubt.
in your opinion, anyway.
Well,
And you have
I
a really
think so.
good frame of reference for that. You've been here for a really long time, and you've seen the cultural face of the campus change.
I have.
That's
And I
really
could
awesome.
speak with very good hands in the subject.
Indeed. So how does one coach a team 9 times to championships?
And
We were having this conversation before the interview started, before we started filming, and you said, it's luck.
it is.
And it's recruiting and luck.
And I wasn't joking about that, because you talk about coaching teams to championships, and you have to get extremely lucky. From the moment you get those kids to trust your instinct, to get the right person, to get the right player, to
Right.
get the right chemistry, to keep them healthy, all those are luck factors. I mean, you don't know when a kid is gonna change on you. You have a young man that's 17, 18, 19 years old, dealing with a bunch of hormones and changes, and you have to be fortunate. And in that regard, I mean it completely. On the other hand, you have to manage it correctly. Besides teaching him, her, teaching them
Right.
how to develop the game, how to play as a team, which tennis is completely opposite than anything else, because everybody's playing individually.
Right.
And they're worth a point. You still have to convince them to play for each other. And
What motivation do they have to play for each other?
championships, the rings, the going beyond, trying to do something nobody else has done here.
Right.
So what we try to sell to these kids is, all right, let's win the conference. We won the conference, let's keep winning the conference.
Right.
We won the conference again, let's go win a national round. We won a national round, now let's go try to make it to the Sweet 16. So every time you have to take baby steps that in the process of 11 years has turned into a pretty big giant.
Yeah, I would say so. And so really it's just about like managing and inspiring them. Like really that's all coaching comes down to, really.
You know, everybody has their style.
Everybody has their style.
I
It's
don't,
like
you
you're
know.
so, I think it's like, to be clear, it is amazing and impressive that you and your staff have managed to get our team to championship levels repeatedly, consistently. And you're like, management or whatever
because
else,
you
but-
can take a lot of the credit, and you know,
yeah.
I'm proud of the achievements. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Every time you see me, I'm jumping, I'm shaking in my skin, I'm nervous, I'm you know, crying, I'm laughing. All these things happen, but the truth is that if it's not for the effort that we all put into it, and being fortunate.
Everybody has to buy in.
Yeah,
Like we all have to
and-
work for the team all together.
And I think we infect the team
Yeah.
with the idea.
Yes.
And then the generation of leaders that we produce, our seniors, our juniors, take the freshmen by the arms and start carrying them.
How big is your team?
Well, I mean, last year was super small. Sorry, a couple years ago was super small. Now we've grown to about 12.
Is that big for a tennis
That's
team?
huge.
Okay.
12, and we got 13, and one guy hurt. So it's a big team for tennis.
That's a lot to manage, especially when they're all playing by themselves. I mean, to me, it's impressive. Like coaching any sport, I'm not athletic. I'm a football fan, and that's it. But I don't really understand sort of the philosophy or skill or whatever associated with coaching. And all I know is when you can bring a team to success that consistently, clearly you're doing something right. And you know, yes, luck and having good talent. And are students wanting to come here, tennis players from like, do people know about ETSU and like, yeah?
Yes and no. Like I say, when you talk about fortune, ETSU would not be the first option of many people.
Right.
But after doing what we've done tennis-wise and creating that success, when we're looked at by other kids, they start thinking, you know, this may be a good option.
Right.
And you know, great players, top 50 players in Spain, which is, you know, one of the greatest tennis countries in the world, when
did not
those
know
kids
that.
start looking at you and you say, you know, Rafa Nadal, and then you go 50 other players below him, everybody is amazing.
Right.
We got one of those guys. And next year we have the commitment of another guy. And you look at that, and that's the only way we grow, because those two guys will bring one more guy.
Right.
So it's a chain. It's not about who I bring, is who we can. I call infection is not a word that you would use
No, but it
positively,
absolutely
but I
is.
think it's the word buying into.
Yes. And it's contagious, right? That enthusiasm
that's it.
and it's, I mean, infection is exactly not, it's not a
And
pretty
I
word,
will
it's
take
exactly
credit
right.
for this, that you'll find it hard to believe or hard to find a person that gives ETSU more credit for what they've done than me. I mean, ETSU for me has, you know, enlarged my life. And,
Right.
And that, you know, that means a lot. I don't want to get emotional here on camera, but it's the truth. You go and you know, you come from a country, and my family was well off. They have business in Venezuela, but when a place means so much to you, and you work with passion, and you believe you've grown and really go beyond, the place did beyond what you expected.
Yes.
Then you get tied down.
Of course.
You know, I've had chances to go somewhere else, but never. It seems like it's better than here.
It won't trump this.
I don't think so. I mean, it hasn't.
Right. And
It
so
hasn't.
We're enormously fortunate that you've had such a wonderful experience here that you're invested.
Completely.
That's awesome. And I like that very much. So I don't know anything about tennis.
Apparently, I don't either.
I know it involves hitting balls across a net and something or another. When is tennis season?
The competition
season?
yeah, the competition season is January.
January.
But we play in the fall as well as individuals. That's a developmental stage.
Okay. So we're not competing.
Individually, we are in the fall.
Individually, we're
Yeah.
competing in the fall, but that's not like tournament competition.
It is individual tournaments, and then in the
As opposed
spring,
to
as opposed to team.
tennis.
Because you play as a team, like ETSU plays the teams in the conference
Okay.
in a dual match.
Okay.
Yes,
So
and
you're
like in the fall is, you know, Carrie plays Yaser, you
Right.
play for whatever team, let's not mention a university, and I play for ETSU.
Right.
And then we play each other, but it doesn't count as a team loss. It counts like an individual win.
Gotcha.
And that's how you get your ranking.
Okay. And then so with the big giant rings, those come from
April
is your
in the tournaments.
team tournament things
yes.
or whatever else. Okay, so all the time you're playing tennis.
A lot of the time.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of work for me.
What's a lot of work for everybody involved?
You might
Like,
want to tell the president to, I work hard.
maybe a raise. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No, just to be clear about that. So how do you keep your players healthy when they're playing that much tennis?
Well, we try, but after 11 years, we've had 2 major injuries. A young man hurt his shoulder, and this past month, our number 1 player busted his knee. And he's having surgery in Brazil. And just to let him know, Rogerio, our heart is out to you. We're praying for you. We're missing you. You're a huge part of the team. And,
Right.
and he's trying to come back. And if he doesn't, I think we got more inspiration to play this season for him.
That's cool. You're going to make me cry.
No, don't.
No, well, I don't think you can tell me not to. I
That's
mean, you
true.
suppose you could.
I could,
But
yeah.
not be successful. So why is he, so he went home. He's from Brazil.
He could have surgery here, where
Right.
the school provides great insurance and
Right.
so forth. But his family, Mama wanted his baby back home.
I mean, yes, I would certainly want
And-
that.
and
if you're
she's
cutting
taking
into
care
my
of him,
kid's
yeah.
leg and whatnot. That's awful.
It
I
is.
imagine it's easy to hurt your knee. I mean, there's a lot of like stopping and turning.
It's crazy.
Hard on your body.
Yeah. Let's
But
change the subject.
I'm sorry. That's
You're making me
awful.
depressed.
So, but in any event, you're doing a great job of maintaining your players' health, even though you're dealing with all this time. Okay, so where are we? What part of the year is this? We're
October.
in October, so we're not doing anything right now.
Yeah, we finish mid-November. We start in September, mid-September, and go through mid-November.
Short season,
Basically.
sort of. I mean, that's a
Yes.
relatively short season.
Yeah.
Okay, so when that gets done, then you have a break until.
We go through 8 hours, 8-hour off season. Max workout. We go up to 20 during the season and then 8 hours, which is either conditioning or just tennis.
That sounds terrible.
For what?
I mean,
They're happy.
Me. That would be miserable and awful. And I assume that they're also excellent students, your players are.
We do.
I mean, you make sure I know the athletic department on this campus is vigilant about making sure that the student athletes are students and then athletes.
And it's crazy, and not to put anybody down, but it's important that we know that the athletic department as a whole, the students, the student athletes carry an average of a 3.0 GPA.
Yeah.
Which is higher than the whole student body
Indeed.
average. And it's pretty tough when these kids are missing school
They have to
continuously.
travel, yeah.
It's rough, and they're working. This is solid work, like most of the students do. They're vested in practices. I mean,
Right.
we bust them. We're not 3-4 hours of practices a day, and then having to go home and hit the books. It's tough, And
And so, okay, so do we have any of our students, tennis players, go off and become pro tennis players, or do they?
we do have a couple on the tour right now.
That's so cool. And the
Yeah.
rest of them, what do they do?
Well, some of them turn into investment bankers. The person that administers my couple dollars that are left over,
Right.
he runs his own branch of investment. I have another young man that's an accountant in Miami.
Oh.
We have a kid that is working as in Eastman Credit Union, for example.
So they're successful.
They are. I mean,
They leave here and they go off and they play tennis, or they're just successful at life.
And they marry, they grow families, they invest themselves in the city, and they're productive citizens.
Outstanding. So basically, you're doing a whole bunch of, and the tennis team, you, them, all of you.
Well,
doing
I
really
don't
wonderful
take
things.
credit for that because that's their push in life. I
Well,
mean, they're
yes.
competitive and they're competitors, and they want to be successful and be able to provide for their families the same way we're trying to do it because they have that goal.
That's outstanding. That delights me. So when we're looking when I want to pay attention to our championship tennis team, I'm going to start paying attention in the spring, and you guys are you're still competing in the ASUN.
For this year.
For this year. So still competing in the ASUN. And how many tournaments, how many games do you have to win in order to become the ASUN champion?
Well, you play all the ASUN teams.
How many is that?
10.
10. Okay.
And after playing those 10 teams, you create a ranking.
Okay.
After the ranking comes out, the top 6 teams go to a tournament.
Like a bracket, like in basketball.
Like a bracket.
Okay.
And then after that, you play whichever way the draw is set, you play them, and then the champion of that goes to the NCAA.
That's so exciting. And when does that game happen?
And then the NCAA happens in May.
In May.
Mid-May.
So definitely we're going to be paying attention.
Well, pay attention in
The
April.
whole time.
In April, because this year is going to be tougher than ever, especially if we don't have our number 1 player.
Right?
But I'm sure the kids will find the inspiration to
Just beat everybody.
well to
make
give
them
it their
cry.
best shot.
Oh.
Let's not talk about beating everybody, but I'm sure that
Clearly we have different coaching philosophies. I'll be like, no, win, beat everybody.
maybe because you're from the outside, so
Yes,
you want to be
that's
all
true.
positive. I have to be cautiously optimistic. I can't be like, yeah, we're going to win. I'm not like that.
Right, right.
I always think the worst.
Well, you have to plan for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm always preparing for the worst, but we practice.
So you're a cynic.
I don't know. I'm a sinner.
There's that too, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about tennis. A couple of interesting points about you, like as a human being, to sort of like finish up this conversation. Your name is Yaser. You're from Venezuela.
That's an oxymoron, isn't it?
It seems odd how that happens. And then you came to Johnson City, of all places there's no reason for you to ever have known about.
Yeah.
And so how does it happen that a man named Yaser, which is an Arab name, is from Venezuela?
It's a long story. My parents are from Lebanese background.
Yeah.
Grandmother on the father's side was born in Venezuela, married a Lebanese gentleman, my grandpa, and moved to Lebanon. Then when the war started, my dad was 15, 16. He had to get out and went to Venezuela, and that's where he met my mom. And I was born.
And you were born there, and you grew up.
I could not be named Pedro. I had to be Yaser.
You couldn't be named.
So
That would have been, yeah.
that would have been too easy.
too easy, and
Yeah.
it would have blended in too much, I guess.
Well, I guess, it's
Not
kind of
really,
hard.
though. Yeah. So, and then you grew up like your whole life in Venezuela.
In Venezuela.
When did you learn to speak English? Did you grow up speaking English?
I did, and I went to an international school that had high school now, but I didn't go to that.
Okay.
But I did start listening to English when I was about 10 or 11 because in the summers we would come over and have our summer camp. So when you hear the English language as a
You would come to the United States for summer
for
camp.
summer camps, yeah, tennis camps
Where would you be?
in Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach,
So
Boca,
Florida.
and Florida. And then that allowed me to hear it. Back then, Florida wasn't invaded with us Latinos. So
Right, so you could still speak
there's
English there.
still English existed. Now you go to Miami and you had all the advertising in Spanish.
Oh,
So,
which makes you feel at home, I would guess.
not really.
No,
not
at
really.
all.
It doesn't. I got away from home to come here. So I really wanted to. But it's Florida's a wonderful place.
I've never been to Florida.
It's you should take a spin.
I'm from Hawaii.
Hawaii.
So, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
I was
good.
the
You say it so
hassles.
nicely.
I say it like you're supposed to.
But Coach Mullins, he was raised in Hawaii.
Hawaii, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So, okay, so wait, what was I? Totally lost my train of thought. So you grew up speaking English because you were immersed eventually.
Listening, yeah,
listening to
yes.
English, and then all of a sudden you could just like,
No, but then as you grow older and then you start taking TOEFL classes, tests of English as a foreign language, and SAT
Yes.
courses, and
I didn't know there were TOEFL classes. I know there was a test. I didn't know there were classes.
yes, you have to learn somehow.
So, I mean, clearly.
Yeah, the
I
language
I have
college
attempted to
and-
learn Spanish.
How's that coming?
Terrible.
Hang out
I
with the
can
tennis
ask
team
for a beer.
Una.
Una más cerveza, por favor.
That's good, and you look the part.
I know, exactly. I try. It's an illusion, you know. I'm like, I look like I'm supposed to speak Spanish, and I fail miserably at that. You are an enormously interesting person,
Thank you.
and you're sweet and lovely, and I think that we are so very fortunate to have you on this campus teaching our students how to play tennis and making them into wonderful, fabulous people. Today we have been speaking with, I'm going to screw up your name, Zaatini.
Zaatini.
Coach Yaser Zaatini from the men's tennis team. Thank you so much for joining us on Spotlight ETSU. We'll see you next time.